You're listening to my favorite podcast, Left at the Valley 2.0.
Hi, this is Amy with a Y from Secular Soup.
Hi, this is Oren Ross.
Hi, this is Candace Gorham.
Hi, this is Andrew Torres.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Davis.
Hello, this is Dr. Daryl Ray.
Hi, this is Dr. Hector Garcia.
Hi, this is Mike Wiseman of The Bible Says What.
Hi, this is Thomas Westbrook of Holy Kool-Aid.
Hey, this is Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast.
Hi, I'm Steve Grumbine. I'm the host of Macro and Cheese.
I'm Dave Fitzgerald.
And I'm Dana
We can start again. Absolutely.
I'm Dave Fitzgerald.
And I'm Dana Preston.
And we took a left at the valley.
And then I masturbated after that.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you from Soap BC and all over the U.S., this is Left of the Valley 2.0. My name is Kevin, and I found out male bees die after mating. So I guess that's their life. Honey, nut, Cheerio. Joining me as usual is a team who thinks that when you light a candle in church, you should blow out the other one so that God can focus on your thing.
Yeah.
I thought they all did that.
All candles matter.
She says having sex inside Olive Garden is incest because when you're there, your family. Sabrina.
Hey. Don't do it, people. Don't do it.
He hopes Elon Musk never gets into a scandal because Elon Gate would be really drawn out.
That's right. Gotcha.
Whatever he thinks of the 80s, he thinks boombox, but that's just really a stereotype. Benjamin.
Hello. Yeah, wow.
Hey, you're implying he was there in the 80s.
First one for her. And she talks with an awful lot of smack for someone who trips putting her underwear on.
That was pretty good.
Kevin,
yes.
We talked about it. No more personal attacks.
Guys, welcome back. Hope you had a great week. So today we'll be talking to a guy named Spencer Kreutz, and then we're studying marine biology. So we'll be talking about marine biology, the ocean, climate change, and all that stuff. But that's in the second half of the show. But first, we have some mail.
Oh, wow. Fun.
That's right.
Someone actually likes us.
That's right.
I don't know. We haven't read the letter yet.
We got a message from John, a listener, and I remember last week we were talking about we talk about
the baloney kit.
Sorry, was it last week? We talked about nuclear energy.
No, the week before.
The week before, and we also talked about the HPV vaccine. So he writes about this. It says, "Hi Kevin and crew, hope you're all well. In effort to help with some of the points you were lagging, hanging the HPV vaccine, the attached is helpful. In summary, the age of incidence for cervical cancer begins at age 20, grows steeply, and peaks at age 30 to 34. Since the vaccine started to be rolled out in children in the late 2000s, the 25% quote-unquote decline correlates with those people starting to enter that age range." So we were wondering if at the time you were wondering, Sabrina, if HPV was attacking women of an older age. It seems it wasn't. It seems it attacks people, women the age of 30, 34.
By older, I meant adult. But okay.
Oh.
Anyway.
I thought you meant like 70.
No.
Yeah.
That wasn't my intent.
That's what I thought you meant too.
18 and up.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
So he also says that, P.S. He also says, "I fully believe that future generations would judge my generation harshly for not embracing nuclear energy to bridge the gap between fossil and renewable energy sources." Thank you so much for that, John.
Absolutely.
And I completely agree with him.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
Oh, and one little note also I want to make out. We had a guest in the past, Nathan Brown.
Yes.
He's also a listener. It's his birthday today.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Nathan.
I already said it on Facebook, but I'll say it again.
We're recording this, and
you're still older than me.
It is also my oldest son's birthday today. So.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Wow. Lots of birthdays.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on. Let's go chit chat. Okay, did you guys see? We talked about this very briefly on apologetics there. In Canada, Bill C4 has passed unanimously. This bill
is fantastic.
Is actually outlaws conversion therapy, gay conversion therapy. It doesn't
Hertzey
just
wasn't on that show, so
no.
this is news to her.
It doesn't just
I have to sleep.
Yeah, sorry.
It outlaws conversion therapy. It also outlaws taking a minor out of the country to use conversion therapy.
Yay! I didn't know that part. That's fantastic.
It also outlaws profiting from it or advertising it.
Oh, this is great.
So this is a very, very good bill that passed in Canada. And the funny thing is, this is even better because this is a bill that was fast-tracked through Parliament. And it was actually a Conservative MP, a Conservative member of Parliament, who was named Rob Moore. He rose and asked for unanimous consent to pass Bill C4. Mm-hmm. And this was the third time they're trying to pass the bill. The first two times it died in the books because of election issues. And it unanimously passed. And actually, some of the Liberal members walked across the aisle to hug and shake hands with the opposition. It was a beautiful, beautiful example of good politics happening for once.
You gave me goosebumps.
Yes.
Would you say?
I love being Canadian. Just gotta say. Anyway.
Would you say that the C4 blew up?
Yes. It makes me so proud to know that our government says, and both sides, even the Conservatives, said, no, this isn't right.
Well, it actually also says that from now on, so anybody, even a conservative, that brings out the issue of gay conversion therapy, that's committing political suicide at this point.
Absolutely.
But there is some people that are saying also, because the bill was rushed, it was fast-tracked through Parliament, it also means that they were just voting yay or nay, but they don't actually have to record their vote. So it's actually not recorded in the books. So if you are a conservative member and you're not actually for the bill, it's never really recorded in the book. So you can kind of play with that. That's a bit being cynical, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. What matters is this has passed. This is law now. Mm-hmm. And this kind of nonsense from Christians especially is not going to happen in this country anymore.
I'm so proud.
I am so jealous.
You're all honorary Canadians in my heart.
I have actually tried, but we have Michelle Bachman, who I believe her husband owns and runs some of those places. So it's
so sorry.
Really been hard.
Well, yeah, she's a nutcase.
Oh yeah.
In other news, we all know that the U.S. unofficial motto is "Go big or go home." I think you guys would all agree with that. Well, it turns out the U.S. being number one is not always a good thing. Apparently, the U.S. there's a report came out that says the U.S. is also number one in plastic pollution.
Yeah.
Surprise!
In a big way. There's 242 metric tons of plastic that's discarded worldwide every year.
Can I ask a question? How common are paper straws there now?
My city did it. But it's weird because like some of the, and it's supposed to be that everybody is supposed to do it within the city limits, right? But some people just don't. Some businesses are like, no, fuck that shit. So, and they are annoying, don't get me wrong, but I would much rather annoying over, the damage that's being done.
So like I was saying, 242 metric tons of plastic is discarded worldwide every year.
God, that's crazy.
This is in the world. And 1/6 of that comes from the U.S. alone. So we're talking about 42 tons every year from the U.S.
Wow.
A new report from the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. This was ordered by Congress as part of the Save Our Seas 2.0 Act in December 2020. And this is a report that basically...
This is actually really good. It's going to tie into a lot of things that we're going to talk about today.
It shows, unfortunately, that the U.S. is more than twice as much as any other country in the world, and more than the 20 countries in the EU combined.
Wow.
In plastic, discarding plastic. Per capita, the average American throws away 130 kilos. That's 287 pounds of plastic annually.
Wow.
I mean, I bought the bag for Publix, okay? I have the reusable bag, so I did my part. Right?
I mean, we do that. We don't, we try not to. And then when we do use a plastic bag, we actually try to reuse it. We don't throw it out.
No,
we try to,
I'm concerned because this report is not really hitting the media and not really hitting the attention of the public.
Of course not.
The report warns that by 2030, plastic discharge in the oceans could reach 53 megatons.
Oh, God.
53 million megatons, which is about half of the total weight of fish caught annually.
I kind of wish this was your last story.
So
Anyway.
oceans could actually be more plastic than fish by 2050.
Oh,
Goodness.
So the report
people
actually
hear this. Like, please listen.
the
This
report
is fucking
recommends a
ridiculous.
6-point plan to U.S. government to seriously look into the problem, and I sure hope it follows and it actually doesn't just die on the shelf as a report.
You know, glass works as a reusable container.
Last little story. We'll go real quick here. I want to ask my fellow Americans on the panel here about the shooting in the school in Michigan. This is the story of a sophomore, 15-year-old Ethan Crumley.
Let's not even name him. That's the last time we're going to say his name. Okay, keep going.
4 dead, all students. The gun he used was purchased by the suspect's father on a Black Friday sale. The kid has a history of apparently being in trouble at school. The parents were actually summoned to discuss his removal from the school mere hours before the shooting. After the shooting, the parents seemingly fled. What they said, quote, was for their own safety. The police offered $10,000 reward for information on their whereabouts. They were found in Detroit, hiding in a building, and they've been under arrest. Now, under Michigan law, involuntary manslaughter charges can be filed against the parents because they feel the parents contributed to the situations.
Absolutely.
Now, we have 3 Americans here on the panel. I would like to hear your thoughts about the whole situation.
Okay, I'll keep
So, also, I did read that they attempted to flee to Canada but weren't allowed in due to not having their vaccines.
Oh,
Oh,
Awesome.
That's everything you need to know about those people.
Wait a minute. They were in
Right.
Michigan, right? This is
Yeah,
Michigan
Detroit's-
shooting. So that's right along the border, right?
Yeah,
Detroit's like right on the border. You can just cross over the.
And sorry, what city?
Detroit.
No, the shooting. Where?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is it like
know.
okay? Anyway,
It
doesn't
was in that area ish.
Okay.
It's in the
I don't
mid.
remember.
So if you're crossing into
Doesn't really
Detroit, they
matter.
were obviously trying to cross into Windsor, Ontario from Detroit, right? When you cross
the bridge.
What do you guys feel about the issue? This is one of the rare instances where the parents are actually charged as not accessory, but helping the situation. How do you guys feel about that?
There should be more people charged in school, including the school administrators not doing enough. The kids were reporting this guy. It was just literally like a failure on all levels.
His mother texted him after the shooting and said, "Ethan, don't do it."
Sorry.
So wait, she knew that he was going to do it?
She had heard about the school shooting, had heard that there was an active shooter, and texted him and said, "Ethan, don't do it." So it had already happened, and then she texted him. And don't forget that when he was searching ammunition, she texted him and said, you need to learn how to not get caught."
Yeah.
This is a really good
parental
where
failure.
honestly, I'm hearing Republicans say that she should be charged.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a rare instance where I'm actually seeing people who are very pro Second Amendment going, no, those parents fucked right up. Why the hell didn't they search his bag?
Okay. See, the only reporting that have seen was very limited. Like it was just there was a shooting at this place, and that's all I really saw from the article. Yeah, because I saw it the day it happened. I hadn't really looked into it since then. Do we have like any information on the reasoning why he did it?
Bullying, I'm assuming.
I don't know. I haven't found that. He just knows that there's reports of many signs like he was finding they were finding drawings of people shot.
The day that they called his parents in, the day of the shooting, he had drawn a picture of shooting somebody, 2 gunshots, and writing
my life is useless and that kind of stuff.
Please help, basically help me, like I can't stop or something. I can't remember the words.
Seems to be a classic teenage angst issue, right? You're not exactly sure, and maybe suicidal tendencies. We won't know. I mean,
I know how I feel about the gun rights part of it, but how is it like coming across to you guys? Like a lot of people say, well, it's the person and not the gun. But if he didn't have access to the guns in the first place, and I hear that the police came out with armfuls of guns from this people's house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think the shooting would have happened? Because this is where people outside of the U.S. say, well, if he didn't have the gun, he wouldn't have gone and done the shooting.
Right.
Yeah. And also, if I was going to say it's a yes and, because if the parents had paid 5 seconds of attention to this and instead of been like, oh yeah, this is our normal indoctrinated gun culture of being obsessed with this stuff, then that also would have helped stop it.
Exactly.
Also having your guns up, at least in a gun safe.
Yes.
If not Also, additionally, trigger locks.
You have to in Canada. Keep going.
See,
you know, like but those two things are super basic, right? Like,
and also in Canada,
basic.
your ammunition has to be locked away from your guns.
Like
somebody will correct me. I know that I'm not 100%. I haven't done my licensing.
I like a 3-step process or something like that, or 5.
I think it has to be locked in a box. It can be locked in a box in the gun safe, but don't correct. Like, totally, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know.
If you want to keep your guns away from
Actually, Spencer will. He's got his pal.
If you want to keep your guns away from your kids, the best place is the vegetable crisper. No kid will ever go in the fridge with the
Please
vegetable
don't take his advice. Get a gun safe. Yeah, I have a friend here who has guns very similar to what you would find in the United States. His gun safe stands 6 feet tall. You open it, and there's got to be 30 guns in there. He's got an AK, not an AK. Sorry,
AR-15.
He's got handguns because he has his restricted license. He's a gun nut. Like, absolutely. Like, if the world was going to shit, I'd be like, where's Cam? And like, it's locked in a safe and his children don't know the combination.
Right.
Yeah. So I just hope I see the day that, in a way, I don't want to mean this philosophically, but I just hope I get to see the day one day where Americans choose their kids over their guns. Because this is getting really, really ridiculous.
Yep.
I'd love to see that too.
Absolutely.
So I encourage anyone who is feeling the same way that when you hear people say this, remind them that countries like Canada have had 10 school shootings since the 1800s. And that there have been less than 29 school shootings across the world in civilized countries, and yet in this year, and yet that's how many have been in the United States just this year alone.
Yeah.
So let's just think about this.
This is a uniquely American problem.
Absolutely. And
But
gun
it's not
control does
unsolvable.
work. You can still have your guns. You can still be a stupid fucking gun nut like my friend. No judgment, but you can do it legally and still keep your kids alive.
Right.
See, I think it's because Canada has so much access to syrup. You know, and kids,
No, don't. There was a shortage. We should have talked about that. They
Yeah, you
had-
guys just released a bunch, right? From your reserves.
Yeah.
We have
They have
national
reserves.
reserve
That's what I'm saying. Kids are like, kids thinking to himself that he wants to go shoot, do a school shooting. He's like,
Right?
what? I'm going to have some pancakes instead.
I need some maple
Exactly.
syrup.
That's
All right.
Exactly.
Moving on. Sabrina, you've got a top 10 for us?
I do.
I really, though, real quick, I want to know all about the Canadian OPEC.
What?
Do you not know much about the syrup?
Oh, I know a little bit, but yeah, go ahead. That was just.
Evan knows more
Move on.
because
Move
it's
on.
a Quebec thing.
Well, I
We
don't
could do
know.
this all day.
I know what the average person does. They do actually have a national reserve of syrup. They have the
Maple
whole bunch
syrup,
yeah, they have a whole
Just
bunch
in
of
case
big
there's a
barrels
shortage like
of
this year.
syrup in a warehouse somewhere. I don't know how many tons of that they have, but it also helps them regulate competition and pricing.
It's very similar to OPEC in that way. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maple syrup.
But it also makes sure that when there's a shortage like now, that there's a reserve of it to release to the public so that there's never truly a shortage of maple syrup.
Anyway, we were
So-
doing the top 10.
We are. So let's go back to that top 10 because it actually ties into your second story and also to our next guest. So this week I decided to do, sadly, the top 10 endangered marine animals.
Okay.
Because Spencer's a marine biologist, and then it ties into the fact about plastic waste because you're going to be surprised as to why a lot of these animals are endangered. So number 10 is the North Atlantic right whale. There are only about 400 of these left in our oceans. Because they have a lot of blubber, they were heavily hunted in the early 20th century until 1937 when a ban was put in place. However, they have never recovered and they have been in decline since. Because they migrate through the Atlantic coastal waters from Canada to Florida, crossing shipping lanes, they are a prime target for boat strikes, which is their biggest killer today. So they're an endangered species because of us.
Yeah.
It's always nice to harpoon me too.
It's always us.
I've got some blubber
Yep,
as well.
you do. So number 9 is the Hawaiian monk seal. And I wish I had pictures to show you guys because, oh my God, a lot of these animals are adorable. Anyways, it's an adorable seal, and it's one of very few species to live in the tropics. So there's only about 1,200 left in the wild. And so that's why they're number 9 on the list. There's several threats affecting this endangered marine species. It includes sharks and also male seals, which attack the groups of females. Like, what the hell? Anyway, however,
they're asking for extinction. Then I mean, what
exactly? I don't understand. I'm
trying to help you guys out.
Anyway,
it's like those damn pandas.
They're sexually
yeah. Yeah. However, with the northern right whale, their main threat is also humans, because tourism and development on Hawaii has affected their natural habitat, of course, as well as accidental entanglement and plastic pollution. Number 8 is the humphead wrasse. It's a fish. So the humphead wrasse is a very beautiful, and it's just so cute. Anyway, it's a characterful reef fish. It's found in the Pacific Ocean, in around near India, Africa, Red Sea. They have really big lips, and they have like bumps all over their forehead. And they're like super fun for people that like to go snorkeling and scuba diving to see. Anyways, over the last 30 years, they've declined as much as 90% because of humans.
Real quick
in
correction
demand,
here.
actually.
Quick correction. It's pronounced Specific Ocean. So.
Oh, sorry, Pacific. Specific. All right. Anyway, it's because of being in demand in the gourmet food industry, especially in Asia. So they've been really overfished. And also climate change is having an effect because they live in the coral reefs, and which the coral reefs are dying off and bleaching because of rising ocean temperatures. Yeah. Which is really weird because really strange, just small side note, I actually dreamt I was like taking a float in the Australian coral reefs last night, the Great Barrier Reef. Really weird.
The worst thing for a species is to be eaten to death, eaten to extinction. Seems to be like the worst
I know,
thing.
it's horrible. So number 7 on our list is called the Hector's dolphin. It's the rarest of marine dolphin in the world, and it's critically endangered. It's found in very shallow waters just off the island of North Island in New Zealand. The main threat to Hector's dolphin is humans.
It's always humans.
So it's usually through bycatch, which is when they get caught in the nets when they're fishing for other things. So they often get entangled in recreational and commercial fishing nets, especially gill nets. Another threat is, of course, pollution from humans, coastal development by humans, and seabed mining and boat traffic. So in 2012, New Zealand agreed to ban a section of gillnet fishing within their habitat, but it has to be expanded in order for them to survive, or they're going to go extinct as well. Number 6 is the Galapagos penguin. It's a tropical.
Wait, there's a penguin in the Galapagos?
Yes, it's a tropical penguin.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So with penguins, like we all always think of them in cold temperatures. Like if you go to like South Africa, they have a lot of penguins too.
Yep.
African penguins. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Anyway, so they're endemic to the Galapagos Islands, and they're the only penguin species that lives this far north. So they've adapted to survive.
They probably fly too, don't they?
Oh, no. Adapted to survive in the warmer climates, and they spend the majority of their time in the water. So the biggest threat facing this endangered ocean species is actually climate change. The Galapagos penguin relies heavily on what's called the Humboldt current, which in the recent years has begun to fluctuate in temperature because of El Nino. So in 1982 to 83, 77% of the population died.
Oh, shit.
And then only 15 years later, they got threatened again by another El Nino.
Damn.
So because these are happening more and more often, it's making this penguin just endangered and in very, anyway. It's kind of sad, that one. But it's climate change, which, you know what? Humans.
And El Nino is Spanish for the Nino.
I'm so proud of you, Ben. I'm just like, how do you do this? Okay. Anyway, number 5 is the whale shark. So the whale shark is also the largest. It's the largest fish and also the largest shark that's in the sea. They live in warm tropical waters, and even though they're a shark, they only eat plankton. So these gentle giants are endangered because of humans. Because of legal and illegal fishing operations. So they're hunted for oil, meat, and of course their fins, because shark fins are a delicacy in Asia. The bigger the fin, the more valuable they are, and that's why whale sharks are targeted. They often get finned, which means they just get their fins cut off and then they're left to die. So it's great. Nobody knows exactly how many are left because
the worst part is I'm told that I've never had shark fin soup,
No.
but I'm told that it has essentially no flavor. It doesn't really taste like anything. It's
I
like,
couldn't
wow,
tell you. I've never had it.
They're killing like sharks all over the place for a delicacy that doesn't taste anything. It's like,
Yeah.
it's stupid. It's so stupid.
So number 4 is the sea otter, which I'm kind of shocked actually. I didn't expect to see it on this list, but it's one of the smallest endangered species. So they actually play a vital role in our ecosystem because they feed on sea urchins, and the sea urchins help. By doing that, they help keep the kelp forests alive. So they're here on this list because of humans. They have the densest fur in the animal kingdom, so they were almost hunted to extinction.
People hunt them?
They used to, yes. There's been an international ban on hunting them. But even then, they're still one of the most endangered species animals in the world because of pollution, oil spills, and fishing net entanglement.
But they're so cute.
God damn.
I know.
They are. They're my favorite thing to watch.
They hold hands when they
There
sleep.
used to be a bunch of them at Stanley Park in Vancouver, and I used to watch them swim around holding hands, and oh my God, I loved it as a child. As much as the zoo was very unethical, and I'm glad it closed, as a child, I was very sad when it closed.
Yeah, that's like all I do when I go to the zoo is just sit there and watch those things play, man. It's so fun.
So number 3 on our list is the blue whale. It's, of course, hard to believe that the largest animal is one of also the most endangered in the ocean, but we have humans, so here we are. During the Industrial Revolution, whaling was, of course, a big business, and blue whales were hunted for their meat and blubber, which was used in the production of oil, soap, perfume, and cosmetics. So commercial hunting led to them being almost extinct, and in 1966, they began to be protected by the International Whaling Commission. So although commercial whaling is no longer a threat, they keep dying because of climate change, pollution, and that makes them one of the most endangered marine species.
Wow.
Number 2 is called the Hawksbill Turtle. It's the most critically endangered of all sea turtle species. It's found in the reefs of the Indo-Pacific and Central Atlantic. And of course, they've got a very distinctive tortoise shell and beak-like jaws. So there's a bunch of reasons why they're one of the most endangered animals in the ocean, number 1 of which is humans. The beautiful marble effect of their shells has long been desired for fashion, jewelries, and accessories. Even though it's outlawed, the trade is still rife, and there's been an international ban on shells being sold, but like I said, it doesn't matter. Also, the hawksbill turtle meat and eggs are considered a delicacy in many cultures, so they're heavily harvested for consumption. So you think humans would learn, since this can be lethal. These turtles actually eat on a specific type of coral sponge. It contains a toxin which causes kidney disease, liver dysfunction, and even death in humans, yet they still eat them anyway.
I take that back. I said the worst thing for a species is to be eaten to death. I take it back. Worst thing for a species is to be used as a fashion device.
Yeah. And then have your meat eaten just to have the person die.
Yeah.
But anyway, ultimately, pollution is actually the biggest killer of this turtle, as well as illegal fishing nets like the gill nets, plastic ingestion, coastal development, and climate change. But conservation of sea turtles is now at an all-time high, so there's actually hope.
Let's say if you're not Mario and Luigi, you shouldn't be wearing turtle shells as
please don't.
jewelry. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. So number 1 is something I've never heard of, and I may massacre the name, so I apologize in advance. It's called the vaquita porpoise, or vaquita.
Okay.
Anyways, it means little cow in Spanish.
Oh.
This thing is adorable. Look it up. It's found in the shallow waters along the Gulf of California. So they were only discovered in 1958, and they are the most endangered animal in the ocean. They're very close to extinction. They're distinctive and adorable. They're adorable markings. They have these dark rings all around their face, lips, and eyes. It's so cute.
They're like black and white like a cow.
And they're a porpoise. And yes, it's so cute. Anyways, they're thought to be less than 30 left in the wild. So that makes them the most endangered marine species on the planet. They've never been directly hunted, but their population is in great decline because of humans. It's accidental entanglement by Anyways, the vaquita are frequently caught within gill nets used by illegal operators in Mexico. Since they can't surface to breathe, they're unable. They breathe. Gosh, I'm gonna have to cut some of this out. Since they cannot surface, the poor animals are unable to breathe and they drown within minutes. So work is being done to ban gillnet fishing in this area, but it's illegal operators that are doing it. So what good's that going to do?
Wow, could you imagine it being like one of 30 left in the world and you're trying to go on a date? It's like,
what did they do to deserve that? They're not even being hunted, for God's sake. Like,
Jesus,
anyway, yeah.
That's awful.
So, there you go.
Man.
There's my top 10. A little bit sad, but
apropos for the topic.
Exactly.
All right.
Made me sad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
Benjamin.
apologize.
Oh God.
Yeah,
No.
baby.
First, Sabrina makes me sad, and then I have to do this.
Uh-oh. I really apologize. Sorry.
Nah, actually, it's not really that sad.
Okay, good.
Take
So
an antidepressant and let's do this.
Last month, traffic came to stop on a California Interstate 5 because an armored car wrecked and spilled cash everywhere.
Merry Christmas.
Money all over the highway, right?
Oh shit.
Yeah. So so they said they were traveling along the I-5 in Carlsbad when one of the doors unexpectedly swung open and bags of cash just flew out.
What? That sounds like a bad Hollywood movie.
Right. Did you hook the door? Well, I thought you were hooking the door, man. I thought I'm not supposed to.
Wait a minute. Door quit hooking. It's held by a bungee.
So as one might expect, when money started flying around the highway, people started pulling off, running around to get the bills, which were mostly 1s and 20s. The California Highway Patrol actually arrested 2 people on the scene for this, for taking the money. They said a lot of people turned over the money, and of course, now they're saying the FBI is looking into it. So if you have any of this money, you better turn it in, or the FBI is going to get you.
Question: will they have the serial numbers of all the bills that were on that truck?
That is a good question.
So I was thinking about this, and it depends on where the armored truck was doing. Because if it's an armored truck picking up money from, say, a business, right? Then they don't have the serial numbers. If they're running like the printed stacks of money to a bank, they will.
Good point. Yeah, that's good. Okay, very good point.
But I don't know. Like, it doesn't have enough information.
No,
here.
they're not going to release that information.
Yeah, no, they're not going to
Tell
talk
me.
about that. Yeah,
But so
that's
I'm assuming they don't, since they're telling people like, "Hey, this money's not yours. You better turn it in before the FBI comes to get you." Because if somebody's telling you the FBI is going to come for you, they don't have anything on you.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're talking about the FBI because technically it's the Secret Service who does stuff with currency.
Yeah, exactly.
See,
I used to work in a bank.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
I thought the Secret Service was only to the president.
That's their 2 things: currency and the president. As far as I know, there might be something else, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
so-
learning all those sorts of new things today.
But the California Highway Patrol says they are working with the FBI to identify those who may not have turned the money in. And they say they have video because people were posting it to social media. They're like, we have video of you. We have pictures of you. We have your license plates. It's like, but you can't prove that any of this money that I have is that money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Unless it was straight from, the mint and they had all the serial numbers on it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll be super honest. Would I take that risk if it was for $1 bills and 20s? I don't know.
For a stack of 20s? Yeah, prove it.
Stack here. I mean, if it's all over the place and you're picking up one at a time, it's like, I don't know.
How many cameras are on the I-5 though? Like,
Well,
really?
they're talking about people that busted out their phones and they were like,
it was on TikTok.
Look, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Everything's wild.
Yeah, that too. Like, they're going to be able to see people's license plates and stuff. Like, if they're serious about it, you know what? My conscience, I would know. There's no way.
I mean,
however, I was walking down the street. I found 3 $100 bills. I looked around. There's nobody around. It's dark. I'm like, yeah, I'm picking that up. Like, am I going to leave $100 bills lying on the ground? Fuck no.
But that's my argument here, right? So let's say you walked up, right, and you saw the $300 bills on the ground.
Mhm.
You picked them up. That money's not yours, right?
Nope.
And let's say across the way, there was a cop sitting there. And he saw you do this, and he comes up and arrests you for this because you took money that wasn't yours.
See, but if I saw the cop across the street, I'd walk across the street and tell the cop I found 300.
Let's say you didn't find him, though. Like, you picked it up, you put it in your pocket, and you
it.
started walking away. And he rolls up on you and arrests you for doing this.
That I can see.
I can't. What the fuck, man? It's on the street.
No. I see what you're saying about how that's not fair. No, I hear your argument.
And then we can add in, you could have a cop then take $300, set it in the street, hide, and watch someone pick it up and run and arrest him for it.
Yeah, but okay. So I agree with that. But are they talking about the people that are pulling out the TikTok video, watching them pull over while watching the money fly out of the truck?
Yeah, they know where the money is coming from.
Well, they don't know. No, not necessarily, right?
I'm talking.
Whoever was behind the truck would know.
That's what I'm talking about.
If you're like, say, 6 cars behind, and you just see money flying through the air. You pull over and you're grabbing. You don't know if it's some weird stunt. You don't know where the money's coming from, which is why the Highway Patrol and the FBI are saying, "Come out with this money and give it to us," because they don't have a case against you.
Okay, I hear. I have to agree with that. I totally agree with that.
If you get caught on camera, let's say you've picked up $20 bills, so you get $400. Maybe you just go to the police, give them 3 of them, and say, "Well, I picked up 3. Here it is," and keep.
Yeah, you could do that.
Absolutely, right?
You could do that.
We're not a citizen there for half a second.
Yeah.
Wow, what an interesting story.
Yeah, and I'm specifically talking about the people who saw the money fly out the truck, and then they stopped, and people are videoing them picking up the money. Those people, if they didn't turn the money in, they deserve.
First of all, if you're gonna whip out your camera and start videoing and putting this on TikTok, that you're picking up money off the side of the road, you're an idiot. You're an idiot, right?
Well, it could be somebody videoing it, right? I didn't.
No,
see
there
it.
is a couple of videos of people saying, "Oh my God, it's $20," and they're picking it up. You're stupid at this point.
That's anyway amazing.
It fell from heaven. Okay, God was just blessing you.
Right.
Thank you, Benjamin.
It's because I paid my tithing, right?
That's it. It's the tithing money coming back.
Absolutely.
It's like the tax. It's like when you get your tax refund. But it's your tithing.
All right.
Trigger warning. The next segment discusses racism, bigotry, and hatred. If these subjects are triggering for you, please skip ahead 7 minutes.
So let's try something new this week. We're going to try a whole new segment from Hertzey. We call it, what do you call it?
Bigot of the week. Watch the banner. It's right there.
Make me insane.
All right. So this week for Bigot of the Week, we have about 500 white nationalists who decided yesterday, December 4th, to march through D.C. to the Capitol. These were members of the hate group Patriot Front. They marched in formation on the National Mall. They were in uniform, shields, and they had masks. But I love it because they had masks that went like under their nose,
of course,
very specifically. I was like, "Aw, you're trying to get away with covering your face," but Thomas Rousseau, their leader, who I'm hoping has no relation to the philosopher Rousseau, marched in front of a banner that said "Victory or Death" and stated, "Our demonstrations are an exhibition of our unified capability to organize, to show our strength not as brawlers or public nuisance, but as men capable of but it's seeking an America that is more closely resembles its true people."
Yeah,
the First Nations, right? That's like
right?
two people.
Yeah.
I would say definitely First Nations would go for that, but I have a feeling that's not who they're talking about. I also have a feeling that women are not who they're talking about. I feeling like that's a very, very tiny segment of the population, technically. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if these ones had the white replacement fears going all over the place, which honestly makes me laugh. And I really want it. I would love to see it stoked because those guys, it's like, we're going to be replaced. And it's like, well, yes, eventually, technically, all of us are going to be replaced because we all die.
That's how that works.
Speak for yourself, mortals.
Oh, right. You're immortal. Anyway, let's watch this video. I've clicked add.
Oh,
Ooh,
nice.
I like the color.
Yeah, that's good.
Bigot of the week.
And it's red. I like that.
I
know
love
what I'm doing.
red.
This is Luca Corgiot with Media to Rise, kicking off the live updates for today. We are currently in the back of a box truck. There is a caravan of box trucks heading to Washington,
Which I think is illegal to be in the back of a box truck.
Is going to be marching, demonstrating, and giving some speeches from Thomas Rousseau. Reclaim America! Reclaim America!
Oh, I get to add flavor.
I love their Captain America shields they got there. That's great.
Oh my god, it's so stupid.
Look, they got these. What are these flags they're carrying? There's some American flags.
Glasses and face. So nobody
Look,
knows
that one dude, they have it upside down.
That is actually a thing. That could actually be a thing. If you have the American flag upside down, it's usually a sign that there's an emergency. And people have actually gotten help that way. Like if their phone, like back when they had a landline, their phone went out, so they flipped their flag and got help.
Yeah.
It's weird.
You can see they brought the helicopter out. There's tons of police. Thomas, why are we marching in D.C.? Our demonstrations are an exhibition of our unified capability to organize, to show our strength, not as brawlers or public nuisances, but as men capable of illustrating a message and seeking an America that more closely resembles the interests of its true people.
It's true Scotsman. You know, it's
Sorry, but no.
I'd like to say that is more corporate buzzwords that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
That is somebody who is definitely trying to prove something with that vocabulary.
But okay, can we talk about his look though? Because he has this red scarf.
Right.
His like collared shirt is buttoned up all the way. There's some sort of insignia on his collar.
Yep.
Some sort of other like metal, like maybe bolo tie type thing. It looks like vaguely Nazi. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
It's.
I'm gonna add, by the way, a trigger warning at like the beginning of the edited.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
But this is obviously, this demonstration is just a tactic of trying to intimidate. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
This was also an unannounced march, so as far as I know, there was no anything like public about it. Now I will say that you can probably get a permit for something and still be unannounced, basically.
Yeah.
Because I can get a permit for, hey, I'm going to do a thing in these streets.
Yeah.
But I also think maybe their tactic here is, if the fact they did it unannounced is because if they did announce it would do a march, they might run into opposition there.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And what's funny is that according to one of the tweets on the article, they actually are. I mean, they didn't run into a huge opposition, but there were people who were swearing at him, giving him the finger.
Well, I saw a video of them chasing him back into that little box truck there, and they all drove off afraid.
Well, that's the thing. So this whole thing is unannounced because they're trying to intimidate. So number one, they didn't come in on buses, right? Because buses aren't intimidating, but a bunch of dudes, a bunch of trucks rolling up. Someone come and open the back, and all these dudes jumping out. That's intimidation. That's what they're going for.
Yeah.
I love the drummer guy too. They were just like sitting there before, going out, and they're like, "Hold on, where's Stu? Dude, get Stu on the phone. How are we supposed to do a march without a drummer? Okay, this is ridiculous."
They didn't even march that well.
No. Yeah.
No
And his drumming was not good. He's like, wait, how do I do this again?
The only thing that was missing were those tri-corner hats there, and he almost had a tea party thing going on.
But it's actually great that people are starting to just go, like, seriously, it's enough. Like, the world is not going to stay the way you want it to.
What I want to see though, I want to see a World War II veteran march up to those guys and punch one in the face. That's what I want.
Right?
I fought your fucking kind during the entire war. I don't want to see you here. This is what I want to see.
Yeah.
An old man with his cane and just whack at him. Like, get out of my.
We all know what they mean by real Americans, right? Like,
oh yeah,
white dudes.
That's what. Yeah. And they certainly don't mean First Nations. That's for sure.
No.
All right. Thank you so much, Hertzey, for
very
that.
not.
That was awesome.
Brett Lee, you got another brilliant moment for us?
I do.
Brought to you by religion.
So we got Another brilliant moment brought to you by religion, and it's
God,
starring
here. It's fun.
Starring Robin Bullock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old Robin.
Of
Are we
Church
ready?
International, apparently, is the church that he's at there.
The man who
And
tries desperately to look cool.
This headline honestly didn't make. I was like, when I came across the article and saw the headline, I was like, they're just fucking with these people because it didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It said your circumcised cat or your circumcised tithe will keep you from having a bad tire on the highway.
What? Hold
Right?
on.
Yes.
Say that again. Your circumcised tithe?
Your circumcised tithe will keep you from.
Okay, we got.
There's tithe was money.
Okay, there's a video, so I really think we should just watch.
So keep that in mind. They keep that headline in mind while you're listening to this,
So the
and it's not made up already.
Will prevent tire problems on the highway.
Are you saying
What about urban streets? Does it stop when you get into the city or the town?
I don't know.
Right? I don't. That's some specificity. I don't know. Yeah.
You see, like the CAA or the AAA has gone into a whole new market all of a sudden.
Yeah.
No?
Let's watch.
Fix your flat tire for a little dick.
Yeah, let's just click add right here and see what happens. Press. Oh my! I'm scared.
Let's just say you come into a place and you need a set of tires. You're going to go in and buy some tires, and you come in this store, and if you're a tither, as soon as you walk in the door, angels standing around that store
hanging out
would say this. They would say, "Heads up, boys! Tithe money just walked in the house. Covenant circumcised money just came in the house." And when you tithe, you're circumcising your money. You're dedicating it to God.
Cutting their dicks.
Hold up.
Of the money.
Go back.
So my circumcision, I lost 10% of my dick.
So if you rip the dollar bill, so you only give 90 cents. So
in the corner.
Wait. I walk in, but I'm not circumcised. Like, what the fuck?
Well, you're a woman, so you only make 80 cents on the dollar anyway. So you're like double circumcised.
I was going to say, so if you're a woman who tithes, do you still get the protection?
Do they know? How do
it
they
only
know?
works with the circumcised. So
yeah. Well, since when do angels?
You have to give it to your husband.
Since when do angels hang out at a tire shop?
Just
that was fun.
One small problem. So, what about people in other countries where circumcision is not normal because it's only normal in one country, and that's the United States?
Actually, I would say it's just in the United States, but it is
mostly
prevalent, very prevalent in the U.S.
Oh yeah, no, there's
Europeans
not
don't really get
maybe
circumcised.
in where is it? Israel, where there's a lot of
Israel.
Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Israel is also a place where it's very common, just based on the religion that's there.
No circumcision in Africa happening all that much.
Actually, it is. I think it actually does happen in Africa.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Anyway, we're not going to go there. I'm talking about not third world country.
I think my favorite part was like all the angels just hanging out, and they're like, as soon as somebody walks in, and they're like, "All right, boys, it's circumcised money walking in the door," and they're all like coming down on the fireman's poles. And
I think I need to go back. It's about the religion, whatever religion is prevalent. That's where it's.
Oh God.
Anyway,
I was thinking of the angels sitting there like Silent Bob and Jay. From
listening to music.
I got to give a shout out to Steve Schultz there, because I don't know how he manages to just keep that straight face every time.
I know, right?
That's one of those.
He must be high as a kite. I would be.
Bullock looks like he's high.
Oh, always.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like he's about to laugh. That's how I always feel.
Actually, right now you're right. He does.
Looks like he's holding it back. Yeah.
I would have a hard time. I would have a hard time going through an interview like this and not laughing out.
Yeah.
Come on.
Anyway, we still got.
But real quick though, I have to think about this. How shitty of an angel do you have to be that you got assigned to the tire shop?
Right.
Great point.
I'm really ready for bigger things, man. Okay, fine. All right.
Yeah. I died here.
It's like the Maytag repairman. You get assigned to one
No,
thing.
it's like you
you're
get
just bored there.
wherever
Like,
he
fuck.
died, right? So the tire like fell on his head or whatever.
He's like the triangle player in heaven.
Yeah. Let's hit play here. It's just taking a second.
Yeah, it does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they would say, tithe money just walked in the house. Get him the best deal. Get him the best price. Get him the best of everything. And so the guy that's going to take your car in the back and you're out in the lobby, he's back there looking at the tires and he don't think about nothing. But all of a sudden he reaches up to get a tire for your car and it has a blemish on the inside of it. And he don't know it. And you don't know it. But that angel knows it. And you're a covenant man. Your money's circumcised. So that angel just bumps that old boy down the line and he don't know why, but he picks the next tire and puts that on your car. Because the one with the blemish could have blown out when you were going down the interstate and killed you and your whole family.
Wow.
But the devourer was rebuked for your sake. And you got the best deal.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
And so it allows God to touch every material thing that you have.
What?
That's
So
the tithe.
In summary, give me your money or you're going to die in a fire on the highway.
Right.
Tires don't cause fires on the highway. I just need to say that.
If you, I mean, if somehow we can have a statistic that showed that when you're Christian, you never had any car problem of any kind, you might be onto something, right? The case.
I'm so, what?
Why are you wasting
right.
time putting blemishes on tires?
Right?
So,
I've never
here's
heard
the
those two
thing.
words in the same sentence before. Blemish and tire, like referring to
I
tires.
actually did have a tire. Side story, and it ended up having a.
That must have been a satanic tire.
Yeah. Anyway, it had a bubble in it. It was anyway.
Oh,
It's sort of like a zit, so I guess that could be a
Yeah. Don't buy tires at auction. That's all.
I was going to get one of those phones that caught fire, but because I paid my tithing, the cell phone store employee was like, "Let's not try this phone. Here's another phone you may like."
That's
Right?
Give you
Oh
the
my
magic
god, this is the
exploding
most
phone, right?
amazing. So how in the hell this could have totally tied in with things that make you go home? Because I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's
This is going to be a great
the
clip.
entire
I'm so
concept-
excited
The
to
entire
clip this.
concept that the creator of the universe will actually help you if you give money, which is so. And it's an abstract concept for us. So imagine being the creator of the universe and wanting money. It makes no sense. You have the power to speak things into reality. Why would you even want something like money? It's not even close. It's so stupid.
I don't have an answer.
It's so transparent. How
Oh
this
shit!
Is, oh god.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say if God cared, right? God would just then to the preacher say, "Hey, invest $8,000 in this digital currency, this Shiba Inu, all right?" Where it increased so much. There was a guy who literally invested $8,000 in this, and he was close to like $1 billion after it blew up.
Christ.
So why wouldn't God just inspire a preacher to do that? Then the church would have plenty of money.
Yeah.
And you know what? Frankly, even if your God was real, He could just manifest anything you need. You know, if your church needs electricity, it would just happen.
Yeah.
You know, your church would need to be clean, it would just happen.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even need electricity. You would have like glowing orbs that just followed people around to keep them lit.
The floating candles like in Harry Potter or some shit.
There
you
you
know?
go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, all of a sudden we're living in D&D world.
You know what? That would be actual good evidence of the existence of their God if we lived in some kind of D&D world. You know, and I would be the first one convinced. Jesus Christ, you've seen the Christians. They never die of cancer.
No.
Well, that's actually pretty good evidence to start believing.
Yeah,
You know?
I would agree. Exactly.
It's crazy too, because like I've had this conversation with people before, like back when I was going to church, and you know, and they conflate. It's weird. They like conflate your. They say like you can really see what a person cares about the most by seeing where their money goes and what they do with their time, and so they use that to kind of conflate the giving of money to morality. In that way, it's really kind of it's sneaky and shitty. Honestly, it's just
And it's the oldest thing, the oldest trick in the book, because before money was so easily prevalent as we have today, the most precious thing you could give was usually your blood, right?
Mhm.
As a human being, the most precious thing you can give is a life or your blood. We don't really do that
Or an
today
organ.
anymore. Today, it's money. That's what we value the most.
Spices.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Spice.
Wow.
Anyway, that was great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Robin
Robin
Bullock.
Bullock
He tries-
never ceases to
He tries too hard.
make me just go.
Oh.
I
Thank
think
you,
he does
Bradley.
great drugs. I really want to know which ones they are.
He sniffs rubber.
Possibly. Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you
Anyways,
so
let's
much.
take a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll be back with Spencer Kreutz. Or whatever.
We'll ask him.
We'll ask him. We'll be talking about
Last
marine
name.
biology. So
Yeah,
stay with us.
TDA.
I'm Amy with a Y.
And I'm Amy with an I.
And we're the hosts of Secular Soup, where each week we offer up a bowl of real talk about atheism, feminism, politics, parenting, and whatever else we want to talk about because it's our podcast.
Just listen to what these random dudes are saying about our show.
This is what would happen if Daria and Jane grew up and started a podcast.
So if you like extremely foul-mouthed ladies with opinions, this is the podcast for you.
Grab a bowl and taste the magic. Slurp even this.
Hi, I'm God, and I just want to make sure to tell you not to listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud. That's Unapologetics with an X at the end. But, yeah, definitely do not listen to the show. I mean, I swear to me, alright, I will murder my son. I kind of already did that, but just don't listen to the show, okay? Hey, Lucy.
Can you not call me that, okay? We already went over what my name is, okay? It's Lucifer.
Alright, look, Luce. You wanna come with me? I'm gonna go fuck with this guy, Joe.
No, don't do that, okay? Can you just leave him alone?
Yeah, I'm gonna kill his family.
No, don't do that.
I'm gonna give him sores all over his body.
Don't do that. That's disgusting.
And, I'm gonna kill all of his livestock. You know?
Stop saying things. Just stop.
And I'm gonna blame the whole thing on you. Alright, let's go, bud. Remember, don't listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud.
Hey, definitely listen to that show. It's awesome. It's really cool. He's really a dick.
I heard that.
All right, next guest is Spencer Kreutz. He's a student at University of
British Columbia
in marine biology and snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer. Spence, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You might be regretting this in about 5 minutes. Oh boy, it's not often that we actually get somebody who studies marine biology on the show. So that would be very interesting. But first, maybe you'd be so kind to give us a quick bio as to who Spencer Kreutz is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the Valley, Fraser Valley, that is.
That's why we're left at the Valley, by the way.
Yes, left at the Valley. And I've always been interested in ecology and wildlife management since as far as back as I can remember. So going to UBCU was a natural progression.
And you're a young man. You're in your 20s.
Yeah, I'm 24 now. So as soon as I got out of high school, I enrolled at UBC in their natural resource conservation program. Mm-hmm. So to get a bit more clear is I wouldn't consider myself a marine biologist, although that is a large part of what I studied there.
Okay.
Oh, great!
I'd love for you to elaborate on that.
So you're fired. We wanted a marine biologist. You're fired.
Very specifically a marine biologist. How dare you?
No.
That's one of the great things about the program that I did is that it was so immersive, like specifically focused on British Columbia, but really a lot of North American conservation issues.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you're essentially.
I think I know someone else who did that program.
Spencer
That's so
is
cool.
essentially the future. We have a future scientist here amongst us.
Well, what is your ultimate goal?
I would love to work as a registered biologist for the province.
Yeah.
Whether that be in fisheries or terrestrial mammal management. But really anything I can find where I can progress conservation and at the end of my life look back and see that I've done something positive for wildlife. Yeah. Because that's really what's keeping us all here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're an avid hunter as well.
Yes, yeah, I got into that a few years ago. Met some people at school who did that. My grandfather on my mother's side, he was pretty into that, but I never really got the introduction through him. So it's been a pretty life-changing process, I guess. It really is amazing. I mean, last night you guys missed out on it because of your salting, but made a wonderful 4-course dinner featuring venison steaks. We had venison heart, but didn't turn out the best. We'll see what happens with that. And then we had a butter.
You ate a heart?
Yes, yeah, heart's actually one of my favorite meats out of a game animal.
It smelled flippin' delicious while it was cooking.
Brent, it's just a bunch of muscle.
And we did not totally miss out because there was a little tiny bit of the butter bear left. And OMG, like, please tell me there's more.
There's plenty more in my freezer.
Oh, please.
It's interesting because people don't usually
tonight.
People usually don't make the link between hunting and conservation.
Yeah. Let's talk a
but
little bit about
you think hunters are actually on the forefront?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was something that really became apparent meeting a lot of these people who had grown up hunting in university. Conservation in North America was really founded by hunters. Hunters and birders would be about your two main categories.
Mm-hmm.
So in North America, we've got a very unique model of wildlife conservation called the North American model of wildlife conservation.
I mean, great name.
Yeah,
to the point.
Covered all the bases there.
Like a TLDR on that. Kind of give a quick synopsis of what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So wildlife is a common resource. There's 7 pillars of the North American model. I couldn't recite them all for you right now, but the main
idea.
Yeah, the main points of it are it's a common resource for everybody to be able to use. It's not just for the richest. It's not for people who own land.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can access it here, and that's one of the more amazing parts. Wildlife is not to be sold in North America, the meat that is. So it's completely illegal anywhere in North America to sell meat. Like Kevin was asking if he could buy some, and I'm just happy to give it away. You know, like if people want to try it and get into that, and I'm happy to share the experiences because it's been so life altering for me. And it's just incredible to be able to go and harvest your own meat, see the whole process from start to finish. My sister had been a vegetarian for 10 years when I was in university, and I was considering going down that path because I just couldn't continue to bring myself to eat all these factory farmed animals. And so it was a decision whether I'd go vegetarian or if I could kill an animal myself and then consume it. If I could see that whole process through, then I'd feel a lot more comfortable about it. And it's really woken me up to that. So back to the conservation part.
Yes.
Hunting licenses, tags are all fees that end up going back into conservation. In the United States, they've got 2 programs called Pittman-Robertson, which is hunting and firearm based. So any hunting equipment, archery equipment, firearms, and ammunition bought from American manufacturers have an 11% tax put on to them from the factory. So you don't actually see that on top of the price that you're paying. It's just built in. Everybody who does it is paying into conservation, whether they know it or not. And then there's also a similar fishing one, the Dingle Johnson, which is about the best name.
Who came up with that one?
Well, I'm sure one's named Dingle and the other's named Johnson.
No, I don't think that's it.
Flipped it then. It should be the Johnson Dingles. You know?
Anyway.
Doesn't make it better, Brent.
It
could have been worse. Could have been the Dingleberry Johnson.
Oh yeah, right. Anyway,
so now you're studying. One of the things you're studying in school is marine biology. What does that look like, studying marine biology? What are they teaching you? I know it's a very broad question here, but what is I guess what I'm asking is, what is the status of our ecosystem, and what are they teaching you in school at this point?
Yeah, so I would kind of break it down into two major categories here. Looking at a macro and a micro sense of marine ecology.
Mm-hmm.
So macro, more so referring to things like climate change, ocean acidification,
Mm-hmm.
are major pollution problems in the ocean. And then micro, looking at like the stocks of specific fish in a region where things are more locally affected by boat traffic, fisheries, dams, warming rivers, all sorts of things like that.
That's interesting. So I mean, when they're teaching the students, the latest science, are they doing this, with a sense of urgency? Are they saying, you know what, we're in trouble, we're in deep trouble, or are they being much more placid about, no, it's not really a problem. What you hear is essentially overblown.
It's definitely with a sense of urgency. But one thing that I found that separates it from a lot of what people are learning from media is more so focusing on the positives and how we are advancing. Because if we don't understand those things and what we are doing right, we're never going to be able to better these environments.
Mm-hmm. If we just sit there and wring our hands, how is anything going to happen?
I think that's a very interesting thing. They're actually teaching the positive side of things. So it's not like, because what you hear and the layperson will hear, it's always doom and gloom.
Well, ultimately, isn't your education about making change in some ways?
Yeah, it's about making change, and
Yeah.
obviously specifically for the better.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
And we have come leaps and bounds from where we were, 100 years ago.
Actually, you mentioned I should do a top 10 on the marine, and I did a top 10 endangered species because, and it's all us. It's our fault.
Yes, yeah.
So it's up to us to fix
really
it, right?
what else is out there that's going to be affecting it?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, many people don't want to admit it, but we are a part of these ecosystems, right?
Mhm.
We are an animal just the same. And we really do have to do our best and our due diligence to try to right these wrongs, whether we did them or not ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that? I think a lot of people have a tendency, when you think of the ocean, they think of how vast it is and how detached from it we actually are, because we're a terrestrial species. We live on firm earth. We don't swim in the ocean, so we don't seem to think that the ocean really affects us. And what is your science essentially telling us about that?
So yeah, that was a very common viewpoint through much of human history, and that's part of what degraded our oceans so far, is because we looked at them as this infinite resource that wouldn't affect us on land. But really now, I mean, plenty of people know the ocean is what produces most of the oxygen in our atmosphere, so we need it to breathe. It maintains surface temperatures. It's extremely important for that. And so many of our food resources, you look around the globe, sure, in a North American sense, a lot of us don't eat fish-based produce. I mean, we eat salmon and cod and things like that. But for many countries, especially in Asia and Africa, their main source of protein is coming from the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we said. There's actually one on the list that's because of overfishing.
And it's worth repeating as well, because we have a tendency, climate change is happening, we'll just plant more trees.
No.
Trees are good and they're important, don't get me wrong, but they're not the source of what actually keeps the air going. It's actually more the coral reefs. And
what are they teaching you about that? To that?
Yeah, exactly. All the ocean plays a bigger part, I would say, than most forests in the world.
What is the future looking at for that? Like, what are they teaching about that to make those changes so that our oceans are getting saved?
The faculty I studied in at UBC was a faculty of forestry, so a lot of it was also based on silviculture, which is forest growing and harvesting. So now that plays a huge role in carbon sequestration, which is really important for climate change. However, oxygen production is just it's not going to keep up by planting more forests. Now, sure, having younger forests, they do sequester the most carbon. as those trees grow, they're growing fastest
Mhm.
when they're young and in these open spaces. However, if we're not using these resources properly, if we're leaving all this scrap out there, then that's a lot of waste as well. So ocean wise, the biggest things, like, for if you're talking what everyday people could do, is really trying to mitigate your climate footprint. Now, there are plenty of online resources where you can go and answer a bunch of questions, how far you fly every year, where you're driving to work. And it gives you a vague idea of what your impact actually is. And these things, if we could all get a sense of this and maybe try to dial it back just a little bit, like with the amount of people in North America alone, there's a massive amount that we could do for our environment. Now, however, you look at the global scale, back to that macro sense, and it's really tough to even fathom that we're all going to get on board together with this. I mean, you look at how many controversies there already are and how many differences there are. It's quite a daunting task to even think that we could do this. Now, I will always remain optimistic until the day we all die. But it's something that everybody on the earth really needs to get together on. And I think, like, these past few years with obviously the global pandemic and everything, it's kind of opening our eyes to our dependence on nature and getting outside. So
totally lost my train of thought. Sorry. We can start anywhere. Actually, I'd like to talk just a little bit about the hunting, because
I have a question that kind of pertains to that too.
Please do.
So basically, when you're talking about carbon footprints, right? And one of the things we can do to prevent carbon footprint, and I know with all these factory farm animals that they're being shipped from places, you're talking a whole bunch of trucks on the road. So by hunting, then essentially you're keeping it local. So you're keeping less travel time, less everything, right? So that's part of your whole deal with hunting, right?
Yeah, minimizing the footprint. And then also, if you eat the animal nose to tail, like, think about, when was the last time you bought a shank off of a cow's leg, or bought tongue meat or a heart or anything like that, where, like, these odd cuts that nobody's eating, and what happens to those, and all of those are also using carbon or producing carbon as they're being made in these animals, right?
Well, and I need to relate a little bit of a local story, but there's been a lot of flooding around here lately. And where the flooding has been is in an area that is all agricultural, meaning animals. And that means cows and chickens. And these cows and chickens don't have feed now, and they've been underwater. And I've honestly been ignoring the stories because I know they're bad, but there's a lot of dead animals. And think about all that. Like, that's also space that's being taken up that could be used for, I just think that you're right. We need to stop a lot of the commercial meat eating.
And it's kind of a double hitter, like with the Fraser Valley here right now, because that entire area was once a giant estuarine lake. So where the Fraser flowed into the ocean, it was backed up because of obviously changing tides. And grasslands and wetlands like that are extremely important for mitigating pollution that's going out into the ocean, as well as sequestering so much carbon. They're extremely important places for wildlife to live. But
So in other words, we should be just letting it go back to what it was.
Well, there's we got quite a few people in the Lower Mainland, and if we were to do that, we'd be shipping in our food from elsewhere. And
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's kind of a difficult battle to win, really.
Yeah.
But
on the plus side, though, those cows that have been on the water, when you look you're buying a steak now, it says sea cow.
Cows of the sea, it's like
you and your jokes. Anyway.
Yeah, being able to
change,
eat local and get wildlife, like, we have bears all through the city. We have deer in the mountains. They're a bit harder to find around the Lower Mainland, obviously. So sometimes you do have to go a bit further, but
it's still worth it, though.
It is, absolutely. And it really connects you deeper to that environment and to the environments around you. And it makes you have so much more respect and think about everything that you're doing in your daily life that could be negatively affecting these environments, right?
Yeah.
When you look at some of the stats that have come out lately, they talk about entire species that are being wiped out. They're saying the oceans are fished almost at 90% at this point.
Mhm.
And a lot of the terrestrial species have more than half of them disappeared at this point. Is going back to more hunting an actual answer, or are we just exacerbating the problem at this point?
It's not exasperating because, at least in North America and many places in the world, the model of conservation we have set up is run by biologists. All of the bag limits and all of that is extremely monitored and made sure that it's not going to deplete the population. And if they notice any changes where it is looking like these populations are decreasing, then changes are made to the regulations so that people don't overharvest. Sorry.
I was just saying that's where finding poachers and reporting poachers is extremely important because they screw with the numbers real bad.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a very common thing too in the ocean, and even more so because it's such a large, vast area that's extremely hard to monitor. We can do our best at ports and making sure that all of the boats that are coming in are authorized and fully checked, but even still,
once you're into international water, you can dump whatever you want overboard. Nobody would even know.
Yeah, and that bycatch is another big issue. So
we were just talking about that.
Yeah. You think, how many people do you know that actually enjoy eating anchovies and these smaller fish? Everybody wants to eat salmon and cod, these giant, what we refer to in classes as the tigers of the sea, right? These are large predatory fish that take a lot of fish biomass in order to build themselves up. And if I could make one suggestion for a lot of people who do want to continue eating seafood, if they want to help increase stocks, like instead of buying a bunch of salmon every year, try anchovies, try sardines. I personally love eating sardines on sandwich, little tomato cans of sardines. Oh, so good. But little things like that.
I was going to ask if you fish, so I guess that's...
Yeah, so I fished for most of my life. For the most part, growing up, we didn't eat a whole bunch of the fish. It was mostly just my dad would take me out and we'd go see what we could get. But that's definitely something I've become increasingly interested with, especially with hunting. And it's pretty amazing here in British Columbia because I can go on a hunting trip and I'll stop at 4 or 5 lakes along the way and I can try my hand at fishing, and then I've got food for that day that's come right from the watershed that I'm standing in and hunting in.
And seeing Spencer fish is pretty amazing though. He has his own harpoon, just stands in the water.
Are you going and fishing the lakes here that often the lakes here are stocked with rainbow trout that have been... I don't understand the cycle, but I do know that they're stocked.
Yeah, so a lot of the lakes in these more urban areas they're called put and take lakes. So the fisheries society in the area will put in a large amount of fish, and those are essentially solely for the harvest by people. It's not meant to try to regain any populations in those ones. Because they're usually degraded lakes. The fish aren't going to necessarily live for a long time. They don't have places to reproduce. So that is more like a gateway to getting people, especially young kids, interested in fishing. And then hoping that they'll have that conservation ethic going forwards and they'll consider more about what's going on in their ecosystem around them.
That's very interesting. I knew that it was stocked, but I didn't know that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a question about the seafood part because I love seafood and I'm in a very landlocked area in the middle of between the US and Canada.
Get out of here.
Oh yeah. It's like middle of the United States, but north.
You have so many lakes there though.
Yeah, it's freshwater fish. There's only some freshwater fish.
The land of 10 million lakes.
Just jumping in there. Yeah.
Anyways, so my question is, because I've heard about where there's some fish and seafood stuff that they're working on farming, and now is that a good alternative to going out and overfishing the oceans? Because I am all for starting a fish farm in Minnesota if I ever had the capital for it.
This is something that I was hoping that we would get to talk about, actually. So thank you. Aquaculture. Aquaculture is definitely becoming a bigger and bigger fad. Now you see many documentaries and news stories about how terrible it is and how it's killing all the fish. We have made advances, and there's a few different models. So typically aquaculture was done, at least for ocean fish, along like shoreline areas where these fish are also, like the native ones, would be migrating through. So for example, on the coast of BC here, we would have salmon pens set up all along these best migration routes, not because the migration routes are there, but because those environments are best for the fish. And then you end up, when you have fish in that dense of a population, like packed into a net like that, You have to treat them for diseases and viruses because otherwise they would all be dying and all the carcasses would be going down to the bottom. And then you've also got a risk of disease spreading that way to the native fish. Another thing is all the waste that's produced because it's such a localized area. You create these dead zones in the ocean there, and so you won't have natural fish surviving that would naturally be on the bottom there, which are common food fish for, salmon and cod and the things that we would like to harvest. So we've been making a lot more advances in terms. Well, actually, let me go back and go over the other two. So there would be also inland fish farms, which it's more like what you would be interested in doing. And these can be a pretty good option. It has much less impact on the ocean environment there, but you'd have to the filtration system and the cleaning systems. It becomes a much more intense process. The
much
water
more expensive as well.
Yes.
So I was just going to say, does that become cost prohibitive?
Yeah, this is the problem with the industry is they'll favor something into the water because it's much cheaper than doing a farm.
Well, and by doing it in the native water, it's exactly what they need. So you don't have to monitor that part because the water's fine. Like I'm a fish, I don't do salt water. I have a freshwater tank, but you still got to measure the water, make sure it's okay.
But then we have the carbon imprint of getting it to the middle of the landlocked because it's several thousand miles.
But this is also what the environmentalists are dead setting up because when you have like Spencer was saying, once you have these big nets and these fish in there and inside the stream, they develop disease, and the local fish, the wild fish swimming by, may catch that disease and stuff like sea lice and all that. Do you think that's an exaggerated threat, or do you think it would be actually better for us to have everything on land when you do that?
Okay, you said there's actually 3 models. Too,
yes,
so
yeah, actually, I can jump.
Let's answer that question and then over to that.
So, just ignore my question.
Yeah. No.
We'll definitely get back to that.
No, don't answer the question.
Come on, Kevin.
I'm intimidating guy sitting here.
Yeah, no, sorry.
So yeah, the third option.
No,
is something...
sorry.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
Answer his question.
Sorry, Kev, could you repeat that?
Question. Okay, I guess the question is: are we better off, without considering profit here? Would we be better off to put these farms on land, considering the risk they pose in the water to wild population?
So it's kind of a give and take because of the extra resources that we'd have to put into it. I mean, you're going to end up burning fossil fuels or using large amounts of electricity from building a dam or some other kind of power plant. And so there's that on one side with these inland fisheries, and if we put them out in the ocean, now if we do have them in the ocean and we can clean up our act a bit, as long as the natural fish populations are healthy enough, this isn't going to make an impact that's going to completely eradicate the native fish species that are migrating through these areas or living in these areas. However, we're not currently doing that with those situations. So that actually leads perfectly into the third method, which is something that's been occurring in the past few years. I'm sure people have tried it before as well, and it's a bit difficult because of legislation that's preventing this in international or in federal waters. Sorry. But open ocean fish pens instead. So you have
that's a great
like
idea.
A free range chicken of the sea.
yeah, essentially.
But very large.
No, they're still congregated in a tighter area.
Okay.
However, because of the constant movements and swells and storms in these oceans, it's actually able to distribute the waste a lot more efficiently.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And in those pelagic environments, I mean, sure there are plenty of fish, but it's not as congregated as in the coastal environments, where you have reefs and kelp forests and stuff like that.
And so, what's the legislation that's the problem?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are some countries that are going forward with that. It's more so proving to the legislation that we can do this in a safe, effective manner. Because when it's out in the open ocean like that, those storms that also benefit the whole idea of spreading this waste can also end up destroying these pens and potentially releasing the fish.
Exactly.
And they could be non-native to the area, just like there are Atlantic salmon farms on the Pacific coast here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that has happened before, not in the open ocean environment, but even in our coastal environments, it's a very common thing.
How do they keep them in? Like, I understand the pen.
I'm trying to picture that too. I mean,
they ask them nicely.
I understand it's a net, probably.
It's a big velvet rope.
Yeah, the cones. Like a cone.
Yeah, so it kind of works in two good ways. Is like you'd have a covering, like a top covering.
Yeah, that's
so that way you prevent things like birds and seals from hopping in and completely decimating them, as
Yeah.
well as keeping the
that
fish
was
from
my
jumping
first.
out.
So like a much tighter net on the top.
Yeah.
Almost like a lid to a
Yeah,
fish
what if
tank.
Shamu decides to just jump in?
Right? Yeah.
Just on the side, right?
Yeah.
And you'd have some serious troubles. So,
Yeah, and then on that side of it, do they have like any kind of metal? Anyway, please go ahead.
Oh, no.
I totally am trying to picture it.
Yeah, these the materials vary definitely in these different aquaculture things, and that is dependent upon the amount of resources that people are willing to spend and the longevity of this project. So for these open ocean ones, they're looking at I believe it was like a copper alloy to produce these nets, whereas inland fisheries, or sorry, coastal fisheries might be using something that is not quite so hardy, because you don't require that with the amount of ocean currents and swells and stuff going on, at least here specifically, because we have Vancouver Island blocking our coast and keeping our waters quite calm. So yeah, the amount of money that they're willing to put in, and then also what kind of factors like seals and whales they have trying to infiltrate these areas and catch the fish, which you imagine trying to stop an orca would be pretty damn near impossible. So now I'd imagine, I'm not sure of this for sure, but a lot of there are plenty of ways that you could deter wildlife from around that area directly, whether that be from underwater speakers or electromagnetic fields. But then you're also displacing these things that should naturally be able to come through these areas from coming close to the net. So it's kind of a catch-22 there.
Yeah.
I just picture a big roll of newspaper that hits Shamu in the nose. Bad, really
Fish,
bad. No,
fish.
stay back.
Go away.
You spray him in the nose with the spray. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, you just get like some shadows that just kind of keep going over, so that they think that territory has already been taken.
Oh, okay.
No,
You should just put like a gigantic aquarium in the water, so you have like glass walls.
No,
See,
they'll
that's
break
some-
those.
That's some
And
outside of the net thinking right there.
That's a question I have about the more inland fish farming, is because, like, we have, again, I live in the land of 10,000 lakes. Is it possible that if we have a completely landlocked lake that doesn't filter out anywhere, is it possible to use that for maybe some of that kind of stuff, or is that just not going to work because it's also really cold?
So sadly, all of these lakes, I mean, there are a few specific pothole lakes and stuff like that where they won't have at least an open stream draining into the system. But no matter what, that water has to go somewhere. There are better options where if it was filtering through a large area of soil, that it could be maintained. But nonetheless, if you have a mass flooding event or anything like that, where some of that leaks over, it's too big of a risk. So the best way would be to actually create a man-made pen and do it that way, usually with a clay cement basin or a raised pen, just like you'd see a above ground swimming pool kind of deal.
Because you have to maintain the salinity as well.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because we're talking about ocean fish, so that's why I don't do oceans. Like, no,
but
salinity is a pain in the butt.
For salmon, for example, they have a tendency to go into freshwater streams anyway to reproduce. So is it possible to keep them in just a fresh? Or?
No, so for their adult stage, they do require that salt water, and that's part of what makes them grow so large, is because of the ocean resources. You look at the fish that stay in fresh water. For example, I don't know if everybody knows about steelhead trout, and those are essentially just rainbow trout, but they migrate out to the ocean, and because of that, they grow tenfold of what a natural stream raised rainbow trout would be, because resources in, at least on this side of the coast, are oligotrophic, which means there aren't a large amount of decaying nutrients producing tons of bugs and smaller fish, filter feeders, and so on. And so if they really want to grow large and be able to produce the amount of eggs that salmon and steelhead do, they have to go to the ocean to get those resources. Now, an interesting one would be looking at, say, sockeye salmon, which is the most popular salmon, if not one of the most popular fish in the world for best tasting.
Oh, yeah.
And now sockeye salmon reproduce in lakes. So they first are spawned in small creeks next to lakes. They go into the lake, grow for a little bit, and then work their way out to the ocean for a few years. And when they come back into these systems, they go into the lakes, they go up the smaller tributaries leading into these lakes, and they do the same thing. Now, what happens sometimes is there's a landslide or a creek gets redirected and these fish get stuck in the lakes. Now, as far as I know, this is only something that occurs with sockeye salmon and steelhead, of course. But Cockney trout, Cockney fish, which you've probably all heard of, those are landlocked sockeye salmon. And so they go through the same breeding process, but what they do is they treat these larger lakes as the ocean ecosystem. So they don't grow nearly as big. I mean, they still stay quite small, but they've got the same quality of meat on them, and they're very popular fish here.
Yep.
So that's something to consider. Like if you do really have a desire for ocean fish, I mean, in Minnesota there, for example, you got beautiful walleye populations. I don't know if you've ever eaten pike, but that's fantastic.
Hilariously, whenever I go to a place and there's walleye, it's always Canadian walleye. So I was like, do we not have 10,000 lakes here?
Well,
I know there's walleye in these lakes. It's delicious. I've caught one and eaten it.
It's the commercial harvest aspect. So we still have those commercial harvests in Canada because we've got such smaller populations. But in most cases in the United States, they aren't able to do that.
Huh.
That's interesting.
So by what you're saying here, you could theoretically take a quote unquote dead lake and terraform it into a pen for farming fish.
You could do that
with the right permits.
Yeah, yeah. Take a lot of permits.
Yeah.
The biggest thing would be controlling the outflow.
Exactly.
And because, like, especially in a landlocked area, that water is going to travel a long ways before it reaches the ocean, and inevitably it will reach the ocean. It doesn't just stay stagnant there forever. And if it did, if it was just a completely stagnant lake like that, you'd have no oxygen in it, and it wouldn't work in general for having those fish in it. You'd have to build a full aeration system, which you probably would likely have to do anyways, but
which is why you need the concrete pen.
Yeah. So
Makes sense.
If we go back to the ocean there, I mean, you're a young man of 24. You see, I mean, I'm assuming they've taught you some of the history of, commercial fishing and all that. You see the status of the ocean as it stands today. How positive are you in your future when you're old and gray like I am that we can actually save the oceans, or is it going to get way worse?
I think on many of the micro scales, I'm still quite positive that we'll be able to help these fish populations closer to countries like Canada and the United States. However, when we're talking about salmon stocks and bluefin tuna and these pelagic fish, because they're going way out into the open ocean.
Can you explain what a pelagic fish
Yeah,
is?
so pelagic would be like an open ocean environment where you don't have, the fish aren't using the bottom structure or any kind of edge shelter from
Such
islands
as,
and stuff.
like halibut?
Bluefin tuna.
Halibut would be using bottom structure.
Okay.
You wouldn't find them in open ocean environments. Yeah, bluefin tuna, salmon through a lot of their life in the ocean. They go out into the deep stuff.
Okay.
Brentley, he's also not much of a butterfeeder.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's why Jewish people aren't allowed to eat me.
Sorry to derail there.
No worries.
Anyway.
Now, that's not putting blame on other countries, especially ones whose government and resources aren't built up the same as ours. We're extremely lucky to have what we have in terms of agriculture and aquaculture and sustainable resource populations where we have a controlled harvest. Plenty of places you're just fighting to survive every single day, right? We will always have food here, like at least in the current state. Like, I mean, sure, the flooding and the pandemic, we saw people buying out everything on the grocery shelves.
Still hard. It's kinda crazy.
It is a bit
Anyway.
ridiculous. That makes me glad to be a hunter, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, we need to
My
talk
freezer
after the
is
show.
full.
You don't need toilet
We need
paper
to-
when
we-
you're
so
out
smart, but
bush.
we need to talk. Anyway.
So
yeah, it's true.
In terms of
I understand like other countries that need it just to survive. It's like I'm not going to fault them for going out to the ocean.
Yeah,
and
Somalia is a very
fishing
good
to-
example. That's why they've taken over to piracy, because
Oh, they
the
have
fish
to.
stock has actually dwindled so much
Mhm.
they can't make a living
Mhm.
being fishermen.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that would be something that kind of makes me hesitate from feeling all the way optimistic about the future of our oceans in general, especially at a macro sense. And then also the climate issue would be a major concern of mine. That's probably about number one.
Which is more what we need to be focusing on necessarily is what we're doing on land
Mhm.
to save our oceans, not necessarily well, of course, partly what we're doing in the oceans, like you said, on a micro sense, but on a macro sense, we need to be looking at the world as a whole.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Everything is interconnected here, right? And it's extremely important that we consider these environments that are thousands of miles, away
It's
from
okay.
us.
We do it all the time.
We do both on the show. So when you're looking at the future and if the layperson listening to you right now, what would you recommend the layperson do, and what would you recommend we do also be part of that question here as a species? What do we need to do? Do we need to focus on industrial pollutants? Do we need to focus anyway? You know the question.
Yeah, for the climate change area. Yeah.
For looking at climate change, yeah. No, I can't claim to say that I'd be able to solve climate change for all of us. So
what the hell do you think we're bringing?
Yeah.
But
why are you even here?
It's really about examining all these little things that we do in our day-to-day, consuming plastic products, burning unnecessary fuel. I feel like going for a drive, let's go do that. And even still, if many of us were to focus on these little things that we do every day, there's still going to be these other places that aren't doing that, or these larger corporations that we don't even see how many fossil fuels they are burning or what kind of waste they are producing. And so
we need to hold them accountable too.
Yeah, so trying to learn more about where your resources come from, and I know it's a large ask because many people it's just hard enough to just get by,
Yeah.
And so if you do have the time, if you do have the opportunity to really kind of pick this apart and look at what you're doing in your everyday life, that in my opinion would be the best way that we can make an impact moving forwards.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Any more questions for Spencer?
Did you end up getting to that third model? Did we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure.
I could be totally inappropriate, but I'm not going to be.
Okay,
I'm
actually,
going to be a nice person. Yeah.
do
Go
you
ahead.
have one more question? So
go
the kelp situation is one of the situations with the environment and the climate and stuff that's really kind of big. Is it possible that like GMO technology could help with that?
When you say kelp situation, could you elaborate? Sorry.
I was going to say, because and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the whole kelp thing like that the kelp is dying and we're not able to, it's not basically reproducing enough?
You may be more so thinking coral reef areas. Is that? Yeah.
Are you referring to like the kelp forest though? Because I know there's
Yes,
issues
the
with
kelp forest.
Yeah, because we were
yeah.
talking about the sea otters eating the, what was it, eating
the urchins, which eat the kelp.
Yeah. Honestly, these are things you should have been sitting here.
I should have been here for that.
You should have woken up.
Why weren't you here, Spencer?
Oh, the old lady who swallowed a fly stuck in my head.
Totally teasing. Sorry, go ahead.
But with these kelp forests and such, is that something that genetic modification technology could help with?
Yeah, honestly, I do believe that we've come a long ways in genetically modified organisms, and it's not all this doom and gloom and terror that everybody sets it out to be in media. Really, like many of the foods we do eat on a day-to-day basis have been genetically modified, and that could be as simple as us selectively harvesting and selectively planting seeds that better our use of these resources. For example, like apples and corn.
I was gonna say, isn't like 20 plants actually all just a form of mustard?
I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I was going to say, I know it's not true, but it's broccoli, cauliflower, and I think kale and a few others all have the same mother plant, and it's just been bred different ways.
Totally buy that.
Yeah. So that's definitely something we could do with kelp in the oceans. I mean, it would be a little bit more difficult because you'd have to go in and you'd be selecting the ones that are the most hardy or doing the best given the circumstances in that specific area.
Or just like introducing something that like looking at it and being like, okay, if we tweak this, it'll just grow faster or better, like CRISPR.
Yeah. So I think instead of focusing on like growing faster or necessarily better would be looking at what is harming it and trying to counteract that.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah, so like many of the crops that we have used CRISPR on or genetically modified, part of that is to try to increase the toxins in them that bugs don't like.
Mhm.
And so in this case, potentially sea urchins, or I'm not super familiar with the kelp forest issue, as that's not such a big thing in British Columbia here per se.
Oh, okay.
Then,
yeah.
But
it is in Minnesota.
Minnesota, we're all about the kelp
here right
now.
In British Columbia, it would definitely be a large focus on salmon stocks, especially considering First Nations and what's going on with them.
They'll be all along the Pacific coast, I would think.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
that's one of the larger. Now we do have not us per se, but a large portion of the kelp forests that are everybody thinks of when they picture kelp forests are California, maybe the southern Oregon coast. So it's a connected environment. I mean, there are fish that do migrate all along those coasts, even up to British Columbia waters and back down. So it's something we should consider, and frankly, I'm going to look into more. But yeah, it's definitely a possibility that GMO could benefit many of these areas.
Yeah, Minnesota has a whole bunch of GMO stuff. Because if you look at the U of M, there's agriculture all over the place.
Yeah,
you're welcome for the Honeycrisp apple.
Birdseed yourself is genetically modified as well.
Really?
It's not original form. Yeah. Birdseed yourself is genetically modified as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not a primary form.
Well, no, she's got the shark hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the picture.
Spencer,
Dolphin,
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dolphin. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that your future looks very bright as a marine biologist, and we're looking forward to hearing more from you for sure.
Yeah.
But before we let you go, I gotta have you say hi. This is Spencer Kreutz, and I took a left to the valley.
All right, and if you guys would have me back on to chat more about hunting, that would be lovely.
Yeah, of course.
Please. I love talking
Absolutely.
about more. I'd love to talk more about that.
Huge passion.
Bring
of mine,
Nathan too.
I gotta have you say hi. This is Spencer Kreutz, and I took a left to the valley.
Hi, this is Spencer Kreutz, and I took a left at the valley.
Fantastic. And that was future marine biologist Spencer Kreutz. Hey, nice guy.
Yeah.
I
Told
mean,
you I like this one.
I think it's really nice to see a young man like this who is obviously going to have a very bright future. Also, I thought what was striking about Spencer is how matter of fact and calmly he was explaining things. I mean, and I like to see that in people. You know, I think the guy's got a bright future. He's got a cool head, and he can tackle these issues. And he seems very, very aware of what's going on, not just as a marine biologist or a future marine biologist, but also the interconnectedness when it comes to hunting and not just here on the Pacific Coast, although you will specialize probably here on the Pacific Coast, but also what's going on worldwide. So I think that brings me a lot of hope to see a young man like him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else we need to add to this?
No, we got it.
We're good.
Yeah. You have nothing to say. Jesus.
No, sorry.
Say all your things
It
about
was
paying
amazing
us
looking
money
at that,
and
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
let's
got to
not
do
be
all of
deceived.
your exits and say, hey, we're over at patreon.com/left at the valley. Oh, no, it's not that. Patreon.com/LATV. Don't listen to me. I'm too tired.
Yeah. Obviously, you need to go back to that. Well, thank you so much for Spencer Kreutz for being on the show, and thank you for listening. And thank you, my co-hosts Sabrina, Hertzey, Benjamin, and Brett Lee. And follow us at leftofthevalley.ca. You can follow us on Facebook.com/leftofthevalley. Thank you.
Yeah.
Twitter at LATV Podcast. You can send us an email at leftadvalley@outlook.com. Give us a 5-star review. It helps us and helps others find the show where you find us. And you can also become a patron at patreon.com/LATV.
Did you say anything about youtube.com
No,
/left at the
by all means,
valley?
go ahead and say youtube.com/
Left at the valley.
There we go. That's when you find the channel. Brett Lee, give us a quick plug for Unapologetics, bud.
Yeah, it's Unapologetics spelled with an X. A panel stream on YouTube, and it's every Wednesday night at 11:30 p.m. and it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. Coming up next week, we'll have Dr. Clint Heacock. We'll talk about Christian dominionism And we'll be finishing the year with Tom and Cecil of Cognitive Dissonance. That should be fun and wacky.
Yeah. And then we're going to take a real quick break for our very first vacation.
Yeah, for the holidays. And coming up in the new year, we'll be talking to Professor Edward Hodge.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about natural persons and naturalized people, how they think they're outside the law. We'll also be talking to Tracy Harris, formerly of the atheist experience and all that stuff.
We'll talk.
We'll talk.
Anyway.
We got a lot of people coming down the pipe.
We do. It's going to be great.
And Belmont Laboret as well is going to come back. We had a bit of a mishap. We'll have him back.
It's all
to
good.
talk about his book. Anything else I'm missing?
No, have a great week.
Perfect.
That's it.
Guys, thank you so much. Until next time.
I say it's ignorance, and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.